Imagine this. You're walking through a narrow alley at dusk. The sun has dipped just below the skyline, casting everything in a bruised purple hue. You pass an old man sitting on the stoop of a crumbling building, feeding breadcrumbs to pigeons. His eyes are warm, gentle. He nods at you, and for a second, you feel that strange ache, like something ancient and noble just touched your soul. But as you walk past, something inside you whispers, he's hiding something. You don't know why. He seemed kind. Maybe he is. But part of you wonders if, just maybe, he once strangled a man in that very alley. That thought should horrify you, but it doesn't. It lingers like smoke in your mind. What if every gentle gesture hides a potential for cruelty? What if every good man, every father, teacher, friend, carries a darkness too dangerous to speak aloud? Dostoyevsky believed this. No, more than believed it, he saw it. In trembling visions and ink-drenched pages, he laid bare a world in which the good are not merely capable of evil, but seduced by it, infected by it, and sometimes defined by how well they hide it. He once wrote, "Man is a mystery. It needs to be unraveled. And if you spend your whole life unraveling it, don't say you've wasted your time." But Dostoyevsky didn't unravel man by peeling away the layers of evil. No, he did something far more terrifying. He peeled back the layers of goodness, only to find the devil smirking beneath. How do you reconcile this with what you've been told? You were taught to look for goodness in others, to believe in heroes, to seek role models. And maybe you still do. But have you ever found yourself repelled by someone who seems too kind? Do you instinctively distrust excessive virtue? Maybe it's not cynicism. Maybe it's instinct. Maybe it's the animal in you that knows. Some smiles are traps. Consider Raskolnikov, the brilliant student in Crime and Punishment. He justifies murder with the logic of virtue. He kills an old pawnbroker because he thinks her death might unleash a greater good. And when his hands are soaked in blood, when his soul fractures under the weight of what he's done, he doesn't turn into a monster. He becomes human, a deeply human man, tortured by guilt, by thought, by love. A man whose crime didn't mark a descent. It revealed what was already there. The devil didn't come from the outside. The devil was him. But why does this disturb us so much? Is it because we want to believe in moral clarity? That people can be sorted, light and dark, sinner and saint? Maybe it's because we fear what it says about us. If the devil hides in every good man, then what does that mean for the good you think you do? For the selfless acts, the noble sacrifices, the times you put others first? Was it truly pure? Or was it an exchange, a performance, a means to power? Dostoyevsky didn't just write about criminals and madmen. He wrote about you. He wrote about the war inside your chest, about the quiet thought you never speak aloud. What if I'm not as good as I pretend to be? And what if, behind your smile, there's a darker version of you, watching, waiting for an excuse? What if being good isn't the absence of evil, but the choice to restrain it? This isn't just literature. It's a mirror, and you can look away. Most do, but the reflection remains. Because here's the paradox Dostoyevsky forces you to confront. The more deeply you love, the more power you have to destroy. The more righteous your cause, the more justified your cruelty can feel. The holier the man, the more tragic the fall. And the devil? He doesn't knock at the door. He kneels beside your bed and whispers, "You're doing the right thing." So how do you live with this? How do you love, lead, create, speak, knowing that every act of goodness might be wrapped around a darker thread? Is it self-deception? Is it cowardice? Or is it the condition of being human? And here's the greater question still. What if you can't be truly good until you've met your inner devil and survived the encounter? You are standing on a tightrope strung between two truths, that you are capable of profound kindness, and that somewhere inside you, the devil smiles when you suffer. The tension between those truths is not just philosophical. It is psychological, spiritual, existential, and you can feel it, can't you? The shiver behind your conscience. The flicker of unease when someone praises your virtues too highly. The shadow that visits in moments of silence and asks, "Are you sure you're not lying to yourself?" Now ask yourself this. What if goodness isn't the opposite of evil, but its twin? And what if Dostoyevsky saw that long before the rest of us dare to look? The roots of this paradox run deeper than we think. In the next section, we'll descend into the heart of that hidden problem. and discover why our minds and souls are drawn toward this collision of virtue and darkness. Oh, you don't become a murderer the day you pull the trigger. You become one slowly, in thought, in fantasy, in justification. You become one in moments when you believe you're above others, when you divide the world into those who matter and those who don't. You become one in the righteous conviction that your suffering gives you permission to do what others cannot. Dostoyevsky saw this unfolding long before any action took place. He saw that evil doesn't erupt, it accumulates. It hides in boredom, in pride, in humiliation, in unmet longing and unspeakable grief. He believed that man isn't evil because he's broken. Man is evil because he thinks and because he suffers. This is where the trap lies, and it's older than Dostoyevsky himself. Carl Jung spoke of it as the shadow, the unconscious reservoir of everything you refuse to see in yourself. Your envy, your rage, your capacity to manipulate, to dominate, to betray. The more you deny the shadow, the stronger it becomes. And the more virtuous you try to appear, the more grotesque it grows in secret. The devil Dostoyevsky saw in every good man was not supernatural. It was psychological. It was the part of us that wears the mask of good intentions, all while hiding hunger for control, recognition, vengeance, or chaos. And sometimes the mask fits too well. In the Brothers Karamazov, Father Zosima is the image of holiness, a saint-like man with deep compassion. Yet his death unleashes a spiritual crisis for Alyosha, his devoted follower. Why? Because Zosima's body, which should have remained uncorrupted as a sign of divinity, begins to rot. It stinks, it decays, it betrays his purity. And in that rot lies a terrifying truth. Perhaps no man, no matter how godlike, is free from corruption. This isn't a metaphor. It's a revelation. That decay exists in all of us, even the best of us. Nietzsche, too, warned of this. Beware that, when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster. For when you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you. The deeper you involve yourself in justice, in moral struggle, in attempts to fix the world, the more likely you are to justify cruelty in the name of good. Your noble cause becomes your shield. Your halo blinds you to your own savagery. You see this everywhere. The revolutionary who tortures in the name of freedom. The priest who shames in the name of purity. The parent who controls in the name of love. We're taught to fear evil that announces itself with snarling teeth. But Dostoyevsky and Nietzsche both feared the silent kind. The one that dresses itself in goodness, the one that hides behind a pulpit, a lecture, a sermon, a smile. Arthur Schopenhauer saw the roots of this as the will to life, the blind, irrational force that drives all beings toward survival and satisfaction. Underneath your intellect, beneath your kindness and your moral code, there's a current that wants. It wants power. It wants comfort. It wants to be seen. And when it's blocked, when it suffers, it strikes back. Dostoyevsky didn't create this tension. He exposed it. He showed that a man could be intelligent, educated, even loving, and still entertain thoughts of murder. He showed that confession and redemption only come after a descent into madness, into self-hate, into the abyss of contradiction. He understood that suffering isn't just an affliction, it's a forge. And from that forge, both saints and monsters emerge. But why do we try so hard to deny this duality? Because it's unbearable. Because we want to believe we are different from those who do evil. That we're separated by morality, by intelligence, by faith. That we're fundamentally good. Yet Dostoyevsky whispers, what if you're not? What if the only difference between you and the criminal is circumstance and courage? Jean-Paul Sartre once said, man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. This radical freedom, this terrifying responsibility, means that at every moment, you are capable of choosing the abyss or the light. There is no fixed essence, no predetermined goodness. Your soul is not a statue. It is clay. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust and a man of profound moral insight, discovered in the camps that the line between good and evil doesn't run between groups, but straight through every human heart. He wrote, a human being is a deciding being. Even in the horror of Auschwitz, he saw guards who showed mercy and prisoners who betrayed others for a crust of bread. So again, we return to the question, What makes a man good? Dostoyevsky's answer wasn't comfort. It wasn't obedience. It wasn't self-righteousness. It was consciousness, a willingness to see one's own capacity for sin. The man who sees his inner devil is far less dangerous than the man who believes he has none. But such self-awareness comes at a price. You must descend into your own contradictions, into the pain you caused and the pain you hide from, into your envy of the powerful, your secret delight in others' failures, your instinct to hurt when you're wounded. You must sit with your capacity for evil, not as a mistake, but as part of your nature. Not to indulge it, but to integrate it, to own it. Only then can you choose good, not as a mask, but as a rebellion, not as performance, but as resistance. And this is the hidden problem. Modern life has taught you to repress, to ignore, to keep smiling. You've been told to be kind and stay positive, as if the devil in you will disappear through denial. But Dostoyevsky, Jung, Nietzsche, Frankl, all knew that what you repress doesn't vanish. It festers. It leaks out in resentment, in passive cruelty, in judgment and shame. It sabotages your relationships, your peace, your soul. And you won't even know where the rot begins, because it wears your face. The roots have now been exposed. But what are the fruit? What are the hidden consequences when society builds itself on the denial of its own darkness? What happens when the devil in every good man is ignored? Or worse, celebrated as virtue itself? We're about to find out. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the world around you. The faces, the leaders, the institutions, the lovers, the friends, everyone playing their part. Speaking of peace, of progress, of compassion. Now, imagine peeling that world back like a mask. What'd you see? Not chaos, not fire, but something colder, something far more unsettling. You'd see the devil not in fangs or flames, but in spreadsheets, in gentle voices, in curated smiles and committee meetings. You'd see evil that doesn't shout, evil that whispers, "This is for your own good." This is the consequence Dostoyevsky warned us about, not just in books, but in life. The silent danger when evil hides in virtue, when darkness isn't rejected, but absorbed, and society rewards the mask. Because here's the terrifying truth. It is not the sociopath who controls the world. It's the good man who has never faced himself. The one who is convinced of his own goodness. The one who is blind to his own corruption. The one who builds systems, laws, ideologies, not to serve truth, but to preserve his self-image. You can see it everywhere. In the politician who wages war to protect democracy. In the parent who breaks a child's spirit in the name of discipline. In the lover who manipulates in the name of care. In the teacher who humiliates in the name of excellence. Dostoyevsky knew it wouldn't be devils with horns we should fear. It would be the priests, the philanthropists, the reformers who believe they're incapable of cruelty. Because when they do harm, they do it with clean consciences. And so does the system. The prison guard who denies a prisoner water. The executive who lays off thousands in the name of optimization. The algorithm that erases stories, families, cultures, with no fingerprints left behind. These are not people twirling mustaches in villainy. These are the products of a deeper sickness. The collective belief that if our intentions are good, then our actions cannot be evil. But intentions are the most deceptive currency of all. Neuroscience backs this now. Studies show that when we perform an action we believe to be morally right, the brain actually dampens its critical processing. It becomes easier to ignore conflicting data, alternative perspectives, pain caused to others. This is called moral licensing, the psychological loophole where we excuse immoral behavior because we've earned the right through prior goodness. It's the same effect that lets people donate to charity and then cheat on their taxes, or preach empathy online while destroying reputations behind screens. We build our identities around being the good person, and the more tightly we hold to that image, the more blind we become to the pain we cause. Cognitive bias deepens the trap. The confirmation bias filters out any evidence of our own darkness. The halo effect lets us overlook flaws in people we admire. The in-group bias excuses cruelty as long as it's aimed at the other. And what happens over time? We build institutions with this same blindness. We call them justice systems, education systems, governments. But they are not objective. They are not neutral. They are reflections of us, of our unseen shadows projected onto marble walls and legislative texts. This is why Dostoyevsky's world feels eerily familiar. Because it's not fiction, it's your society. And beneath the veneer of moral language, there is suffering, quiet, invisible, unrecorded. The man wrongly accused, crushed under a legal system that worships its own rules. The woman who smiles at dinner while her mind screams from years of emotional coercion. The child who grows up believing love always comes with shame. None of them can point to a villain, because the villain believed he was saving them. That's the horror. The devil in every good man does not announce himself. He builds systems. He hands out medals. He sleeps well at night. And the consequences? They are subtle. They look like depression, like mass anxiety, like burnout, disillusionment, spiritual numbness. People begin to feel hollow, even when they have it all. They begin to suspect that something is wrong, but they can't name it, because no one did anything wrong exactly. But something evil was allowed. It wore nice clothes. It spoke politely, and no one dared to call it by its name. Dostoyevsky's characters are filled with this haunting knowledge. They speak to you across time, not to entertain, but to warn. Raskolnikov doesn't just suffer guilt. He suffers awakening. He realizes that moral superiority is a dangerous illusion, that no one is immune to evil, that redemption is only possible once you stop pretending you're different from the rest of humanity. In Demons, we see the revolutionary idealist, Shadov, slowly realize that his beautiful ideas have become vehicles for destruction. That ideology, without humility, becomes a weapon. In The Idiot, Prince Mishkin, pure, saintly, tries to love the world, but the world destroys him. Not because he was evil, but because he refused to see evil in others until it was too late. So what does this mean for you? You are shaped not just by your values, but by your refusal to examine your shadows. You are vulnerable not when you admit your flaws, but when you hide them behind perfection. You are most dangerous when you think you are the hero of your story, because the devil doesn't need to tempt you. He just needs you to believe you're incapable of temptation. And when entire cultures believe this, when civilizations build on the myth of inherent goodness, they produce systems that feel just but rot from within. It is not evil men we should fear. It is good men with unexamined hearts. And here is the most painful truth. Most people will never face this. They will live their lives with unacknowledged cruelty, with hidden pride, with masked dominance. They will raise children in their image. They will write laws with their values. They will sleep peacefully, and they will call it love, and justice, and progress. But underneath it all, something is starving, something is screaming. And unless we listen, unless we see, this devil in us will inherit everything we build. The time for seeing is now. You can feel it now, can't you? That tightness beneath your skin, that quiet recognition you've tried to avoid, the suspicion that maybe the way you've always seen yourself, your goodness, your intentions, your civility, might not be the whole truth. And maybe that's the beginning of something extraordinary, because the real rebellion doesn't begin with shouting in the streets or condemning the world. It begins with a whisper. What if I'm not who I thought I was? This is the moment Dostoyevsky's characters live for. Not the resolution, not the forgiveness, but the tearing open, the collapse of the lie. The day a man meets his own shadow in full daylight and does not look away. And you, right now, stand at that edge. This is your rebellion. But first, a brutal truth. Redemption is not a reward. It is not handed to the virtuous. It is earned by the broken, by those who have looked inward and seen not just sadness, but savagery. Not just pain, but pride, and still choose to live with awareness. To rebel is not to become pure. It is to become whole. And to do that, you must abandon the illusion of moral superiority. You must do what society trains you never to do. Hold up a mirror when it's most uncomfortable. Let's go deeper. Carl Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You've spent a lifetime imagining those figures, versions of yourself that are kind, wise, helpful, versions that follow rules, give charity, speak gently. But now the task is different. Can you face the parts of yourself you've locked away? Can you name the satisfaction you felt when someone failed? The moment you withheld kindness to maintain control? The quiet pleasure of winning, even when it hurts someone else? This is not about guilt. This is about power. Because here's the secret. The devil only controls you when you pretend he isn't there. But when you see him, truly see him, he loses dominion. He becomes a part of you, not a master, but a shadow. And when a shadow is integrated, you stop being afraid of your own depth. You become dangerous in the best way. You become awake. Think of the Christ figure in Dostoyevsky's works, not as a pious statue, but as a man who walks willingly into pain, into betrayal, into suffering. A man who says, I will carry this, not because I am good, but because I am responsible. Responsibility is the cornerstone of rebellion, not blame. Blame is cheap. You can blame your childhood, your trauma, your parents, your culture, but none of that will change you. Rebellion begins when you stop asking, who made me this way? And start asking, what will I do now that I know? Take Raskolnikov. His crime was philosophical before it was physical. He convinced himself he was beyond morality, that he had a right to kill. But his real rebellion wasn't in the murder. It was in the confession, in the collapse of his ego, in choosing suffering over delusion. And what about you? What if your rebellion is not in grand gestures, but in the silent act of telling the truth about yourself? Try this. Say aloud, I am capable of cruelty. Say, I have lied to protect my image. Say, I have judged others more harshly than I've judged myself. Say, I want to be seen as good, even when I'm not. Let it burn. Let it break something inside you. That is the sound of falsehood cracking. That is the sound of real life emerging. Because once the lie dies, something sacred is born. Freedom. This is the path that few take. The path of radical honesty. Of choosing discomfort over performance. Of choosing consciousness over control. And the world does not want this from you. The world wants you to smile, to perform, to post curated kindness, and pretend you have nothing monstrous inside. But every performance you give strengthens the very devil you wish to destroy. So you must refuse. You must resist the pressure to be perfect. You must speak of your fears, your violence, your envy. You must sit at the table with them without shame. Only then do you begin to understand yourself, not as an angel or a demon, but as something truer, a full human being. And once you do that, once you begin walking in truth, others will follow. This is where the rebellion becomes contagious. You become a lighthouse for the shattered, a signal fire for those who are still pretending. Your vulnerability grants them permission to descend into their own darkness and rise. But this isn't a one-time act. It is a daily defiance. Each time you choose awareness over comfort. Each time you question your motives instead of defending them. Each time you apologize with sincerity without needing to be forgiven. Each time you hold someone's pain without trying to fix it or elevate yourself in the process. Each time you admit, I'm still learning, still flawed, still growing. That is rebellion. And it's not abstract. It's real, concrete. It looks like a leader who confesses failure in front of their team. A father who apologizes to his child. A woman who sets boundaries without needing to be liked. A teenager who admits they're lost instead of pretending to be fine. A stranger who chooses silence instead of judgment. These are acts of revolution because they dismantle the system that says you must be perfect to be worthy, that you must hide your pain to be lovable, that you must pretend to be good to belong. Dostoyevsky didn't write for perfect people. He wrote for you. The one with bruises and confusion and old secrets. And now, you see the pattern. You see how the devil in every good man isn't your enemy. He's your test, your teacher. He asks only one question. Will you own me or deny me? Most will deny. Some will own. And the few who do, they become something new. Not saints, not sinners. Beings of depth, of shadow and light, of fire and mercy. And from that soil, something pure can grow. Not the purity of performance, but the purity of wholeness. The rebellion has begun. But one last truth remains. One that transcends psychology, philosophy, and narrative. One that reveals the ultimate insight. The one that makes sense of it all. You've seen the cracks in the mask. You've walked through the halls of self-deception. You've met the devil, not in someone else's shadow, but in your own reflection. And yet, you are still here, still breathing, still alive. So now comes the final step. Not an answer, but a revelation. One that shatters the foundation beneath everything you thought you knew about morality, evil, redemption, and love. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff. Behind you, the world you've always known. Rules, beliefs, performances, identities. Below you, the abyss. Raw truth, unfiltered being, a silence so deep it devours meaning. And ahead, across the chasm, is something you can't quite name. Not heaven, not hell, but a presence, a light without comfort, a peace without denial. And then it speaks, not in words, but in knowing there was never a war between good and evil, only between wholeness and fragmentation. That's it. That's the truth Dostoyevsky saw in the bones of every man and woman. Not that evil opposes good, but that evil is what remains when we refuse to integrate our full humanity. It's not about eradicating darkness. It's about reconciling with it. The devil isn't your enemy. He is your missing half, the one you banished, the one you refuse to love. And that's the most terrifying, liberating truth of all. Evil persists not because it is strong, but because it has been exiled. Dostoyevsky realized that salvation isn't found in righteousness. It's found in acceptance. Not acceptance of harm, but of capacity, of truth, of contradiction. Can you accept that within you lives both the murderer and the martyr, the betrayer and the beloved, the coward and the courageous? Until you can, you will always live in fear of being exposed, of falling from grace, of discovering you were never good enough. But once you do, once you embrace the entirety of yourself, flaws, filth, failures, you unlock something no ideology can offer. Freedom without denial, love without illusion, power without pretense. Dostoyevsky's last gift was the Brothers Karamazov, a novel where every character is a fragment of the human psyche. Alyosha, the idealist, Ivan, the intellect, Dmitri, the sensualist, Smerdyakov, the shadow. Each one tries to live as if only one part is true. Each one fails, and only when their masks collapse do they begin to live. So here it is, your final paradox. You cannot be truly good until you face the capacity for evil within yourself. And you cannot truly love until you've held your own darkness with compassion. Because what is love, really? Not approval, not safety, not harmony. Love is the choice to see someone clearly and stay, including yourself. When you stop dividing the world into heroes and villains, you become whole. And in that wholeness, something radical happens. You stop needing others to be broken so that you can feel virtuous. You stop projecting your shadow onto enemies, ideologies, strangers. You stop performing goodness and start living in truth. And truth, when stripped of its costume, is raw. It humbles you. It undresses you. It breaks the spine of certainty. But it also gives you something sacred, a quietness, a clarity, a light that doesn't blind, but warms. That's what Dostoyevsky saw in the cell of a man awaiting death. In the trembling hands of Raskolnikov. In the gaze of a Christ-like idiot scorned by the world. He saw that the final frontier is not heaven. It's integration. Not escape from darkness, but union with it. Not perfection, but presence. So here you are, at the edge of the old world, no longer needing to call yourself good, no longer needing to be innocent, just human. And in that humanness, there is space for everything. Joy, rage, shame, compassion, violence, grace, nothing denied, nothing shamed, nothing hidden. You are the battlefield and the healer, the wound and the salve, the devil and the child who survived him. So what now? Now you walk forward, not as someone who has conquered evil, but as someone who no longer fears it. You forgive not to forget, but to reclaim. You love not because it's easy, but because it's the only thing deep enough to hold the whole truth. You suffer, not as punishment, but as initiation. You live, not to be pure, but to be real. And as you walk, others will see, not your performance, but your presence. And they will feel, perhaps for the first time, that they too are allowed to be whole, to drop the act, to stop running, to look into the mirror and finally say, there is darkness in me, and I am not afraid. That is the revolution Dostoyevsky died trying to give the world. Not one of flags and fire, but of men and women who have faced the devil in their own souls and chose not to kill him, but to know him. Because in knowing, there is no fear. In knowing, there is no war. Only truth, only love, only freedom. You are not here to be a saint. You are here to remember who you are, all of it, and walk boldly with nothing left to hide. That is how the devil dies, not with a sword, but with a light strong enough to embrace the whole of you.